Feminist analysis not only critiques art depictions of women, but also studies the life of women during the time period the art piece was created. Throughout history, femininity has been directly associated with depictions of fertility and motherhood. One example of this can be seen in this sculpture called Venus of Willendorf, dating back to 28,000 BCE. Notice how she is faceless. However, her abdomen and breasts are large to indicate childbearing. During the rise of the Roman Empire, women were seen as passive and associated with beauty and domesticity, while men were associated with power, dominance, and social status. An example of this can be seen in the depictions of nudity, where men were chiseled, which represented their superiority. Moving forward to the Middle Ages, women became spiritual concepts of chastity and humility. In fact, any time a woman's power was depicted, it was represented by showing the maltreatment of men at the hands of women, usually in terms of demonology or witchcraft. These depictions by male artists represented the polar opposite views of women, either an ideology or misogynistic viewpoint. This viewpoint moved towards the Renaissance era, where women were depicted as beauty. However, when women were depicted nude, they were seen as sorceresses conducting supernatural acts. Sexism became prevalent during the 18th and 19th century. In this painting called The Slave Market, the artist presents masculine dominance in relation to female abuse. During the 20th century is when we saw the rise of feminism and the critique of female figures in art. During this time, women sought to obtain rights and privileges equal to those of men in all aspects, including art. In the beginning of the 20th century, it was fashion designers that brought the emergence of gender identity and broadened gender boundaries. During the 1960s and 70s, with the emergence of the feminist movement, gender roles were being challenged, and the female body was being portrayed as a battleground for dominance. This is where the term the male gaze was coined. The male gaze portrayed women as passive objects of sexual desire, and feminists began questioning the social value of women. Women make up half the population, but are almost completely absent when discussing famous artists. And any type of artistic creations that were created by women, such as weaving or pottery, were not seen as art, but rather simple crafts, while a male's art piece may have been declared as genius or a masterpiece. As discussed before, women were seen as inferior to men, so it became impossible for women to attend any art classes, thus the lack in representation and practice. Feminists ask for a reevaluation of women's art throughout history, as we can see through Judy Chicago's The Dinner Party. Judy Chicago created the dinner party as a way of highlighting women in history. The dinner party was created from 1974 to 1979 and is currently being displayed at the Brooklyn Museum. It impacted society in that it was uncommon for women to have a memorial pertaining to women empowerment during this time. It consists of 39 large place settings arranged in a triangular dinner table, 48 feet long on each side. The place settings themselves consist of a gold ceramic chalice, an embroidered individualized tablecloths with the names of important women throughout history and mythology, and a china plate designed with butterfly or vulva-like paintings. Some of the women include a fertility goddess in representing women as creators of life, Theodora, who was born into a low socioeconomic class and later became empress of the Byzantine Empire in Egypt, as well as Virginia Woolf, famously known for her book, A Room of One's Own. The floor of the dinner table was also part of the art piece. The floor also consists of 999 other important women in history and mythology. Chicago used the dinner party to reimagine history through a woman's point of view and provide role models for younger generations. This continues to empower women to succeed and fight for equality and justice. While the dinner party inspired power, Marina Abramovich's Rhythm Zero shocked the world. Abramovich was born in Serbia and chose performance art as a means of creating it. Abramovich pushed her body and mind to their limits, usually involving discipline and pain. It was believed that it was her mother, who was often cold, distant, and punished her severely, that brought about the interest in pain limitations. In 1974, she performed her Rhythm Zero, in which she stood at the front of a large room for 6 hours and allowed the audience to do what they pleased with her, using different objects that were presented on a table. The different objects ranged from flowers and feathers to knives, blades, and even a gun. At the beginning of the performance, the audience was gentle, kissing her cheek and caressing her with flowers, but as the time passed, the audience became more and more violent by cutting off her clothes, cutting her with a razor, and even pointing the gun at her. After 6 hours were over, Abramovich moved and the audience ran at the horrors they had committed. They could not stand to see what they had done to an actual person. The purpose of Rhythm Zero was to showcase the nature and violence of men and the boundaries they will push if they are given free range. This showcased why women need to speak up about rape, sexual harassment, violence, and political injustice. The struggle for art to be gender inclusive continues today as the rise of activist groups such as the artistic group called the Guerrilla Girls continue to criticize women's inclusivity in art galleries. Fortunately, as feminists continue to push for inclusivity, there has been small progress, but we still have a long way to go.